There you go.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for braving the elements and the flood conditions in the subways. Glad to have you here for our next in the UX mobile series. I want to first extend a thanks to our sponsors. We're a nonprofit industry association, and sounds trite, but were it not for our sponsors, we would not be here. And with that, let me introduce Charles Mauro, who is the organizer of this UX track. Charles?
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. What I'd like to do is, instead of giving you more background tonight, I'd like to move quickly to our first speaker, Tim Reis. Tim is head of mobile and social solutions for Google America. We're very happy to have Tim here. We had a scheduling conflict before, and he's very graciously agreed to come back and speak with us again. He's been leading mobile at Google since 2010 and held a variety of positions at Google. I was just at Google over the week, the last couple of days, briefly, and you have a big footprint, even on the West Coast. And previously worked for Plum TV and for Forbes magazine. So without further ado and further background, just turn it over to Tim. Welcome to NYTEC UX.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here, and my apologies to anybody who came last time I was supposed to be here, and we just had a complete meltdown of coordination there. Probably my fault or my team's fault. A couple of brief pre-game announcements. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but there's a gentleman who looks so much like Vint Cerf, it completely freaked me out. Vint is works for us.
And this guy's daughter works for you guys too.
Really? She should have told you how much you look like Vint. I saw Vint last week in DC, and interestingly enough, 5 years ago, not long after I joined Google, I asked him to speak to a client. American Express had asked bring us somebody who can talk about the future. 5 years ago. And make sure it's not a sales guy. It can't be a sales guy. It's got to be somebody who just talks about the future. And Vint was kind enough to do it, and all he wanted to talk about 5 years ago was mobile. And he talked at length about it with the client and the agency, and they at some point said, okay, I get it, mobile's going to be big. And then what? What else? And he said, I don't think you're listening. There is nothing else. It's mobile. Everything's going to be about the ability to take computing power with you where you go. And how that plays out is, a lot up in the air. This is a deck that's very much about the advice that we're giving to marketers about mobile. I'll digress from it to start to name drop one more time. And I'm sorry, I forgot one other pre-announcement I wanted to make. Speaking of daughters, my daughter is just finished her sophomore year at Michigan, and she got an internship. She's a student of psychology and art history, but she got an internship writing a blog for somebody about technology. And her first post just went up, and she called me the other night to say, I'm working on this thing, I just want you to read it. It's about location-based advertising. I just want you to proofread it for grammar and stuff. Do you have any idea what I do for a living? Daughter's fine. All right, so my other name drop moment is that we call new employees of Google nooglers, and we had a noogler speak to us. And this noogler was Ray Kurzweil. There were about 50 of us sat with him, and where he opened up, and I'm telling you this because this is what I'm talking to marketers about right now. He talked about the fact that he had plotted virtually any kind of technology and said that it's all adopted and all develops at an exponential rate. Now, I'm assuming the people in this room understood the implications of that. I was an English major, so I followed the first part of what he said, which was, he said, we all know what that means. A linear progression is 1, 2, 3, 4. An exponential progression is 1, 2, 4, 8. And that doesn't seem like a very big deal until you realize that the 40th step of linear progression is 40, and the 40th step of an exponential progression is 1 trillion. And for the English majors in the room, we all kind of went, whoa, hadn't thought about that. And that's a slide that I'm putting in front of every one of my clients right now, because they're talking about mobile in a way that, well, we'll get there. Well, we're, it's on our 18-month plan. And I hear 18 months and I say, I'm going to go short your stock now, because 18 months now is what like years was before. So, hence we started talking to people about what to do, because we noticed that marketers were moving from why mobile. They understood it's already at their doorstep. So now they were saying, what do we do? How do we do it? So we organized some thoughts. And rather than read every one of these 5 concepts, I'll tell you the buckets they were in. This idea of winning the moments that matter, that there are contexts that people are in that really make a difference. And if you get them at that moment, that's going to be a win. Enabling better decisions, organizing your company correctly to exploit the opportunities around mobile, and then constantly innovating. Are you understanding all that you have to do and how quickly you have to do it to deal with the mobile realities? So let's start with the mobile value prop. You don't actually have to hear this guy. This is what one advertiser did in a video on YouTube to explain their value prop. Their mobile value prop. They had a guy jump out of an airplane and book a hotel room at the hotel where he was going to land. And it's kind of stunky, but if you think about it, it conveyed exactly what the value prop was. Because as you'll see in a later slide, a remarkable number of bookings that happen on mobile devices happens the same day. In fact, within a mile of the location. Maybe you've been in a different city and all of a sudden you need a hotel room. Right? That's happening quite a lot.
Do we have a reservation for Mr. J.T. Holmes, please?
Randy was a bit of a doozy.
Get that reservation for Mr. Holmes.
So this isn't a recommended method or anything. You get the idea that this was a way of capturing, here's our value prop in a mobile experience. Dave and I were just talking about the whole concept of context and how important it is for you to rethink what your consumer wants to do in different contexts. So for instance, Intuit created an app that allowed you to file your taxes, simple taxes, my daughter's taxes, just by taking a picture of your W-2 form and answering a few questions on your phone. So this is one of the big buckets that I'm talking to marketers about a lot. And you'll see, I'd invite you to look for signs of it throughout the talk today. Friction. How do you erase friction at every point in your consumer journey? And here was a big one. Everybody hates doing their taxes. It's not easy even to have somebody else do your taxes because you have to jump through so many hoops. Here was an advertiser who said, you know what, we can erase that friction, and that's going to be huge for our marketers. I mentioned before how many hotel rooms are being booked same day. Well, Priceline is finding that. And so they're now looking at, and you see it in the expression of apps or entities like Hotel Tonight, are in response to the fact that 82% of rooms are being booked less than a day before arrival. Day up, oh, my flight got canceled, the meeting got extended, whatever it is. They were able to react to the new reality and people's desire to do that on their phone. Amazon was a pioneer in what's become called showrooming, right? They created an app that allowed you to stand in somebody else's store, take a picture of a barcode, and find out what you could get it for on Amazon. They even, when they launched this, offered a coupon if you ordered right from the store. That's a pretty aggressive stance, right? It used to be if you were Target, you woke up every morning worrying about what Walmart was doing. And then you worried about what Amazon was doing. And then you worried about how many people are standing on real estate I'm paying for and buying stuff from Amazon. That's a different world. And by the way, our advice to marketers about this, about the whole showrooming phenomenon, is don't fight it. Get in, get involved, because it's going to happen anyway. So how are you going to win in that environment? How do you change the playing field? So the key takeaway here is thinking about your value prop. What is true to your brand, to your entity, that adds value to the lives of consumers? Now, when we think about how digital destinations or mobile destinations are affected, we can go back to that idea about friction. Because it turns out that doing this is enough for 4 out of 10 consumers to say, oh, forget it, that was exhausting. Right? Pinch and zoom is a speed bump that 40% of consumers will not cross. We also have, and there are a bunch of stats behind this, won't recommend, but there are all these other, I don't think this is a forward-looking business. I don't think this is a company that I want to do business with. Whatever it might be. You really quickly get a picture that you're giving the wrong impression if you don't have a mobile optimized or a responsive design site. Wow, that's a funky thing that happened with that type. It's always helpful to draw attention to the bad thing that happened to your phone. 1-800-Flowers, this is really interesting. They weren't even a non-optimized site. They were at one of the first to have a mobile optimized site. But when they improved it further by highlighting some activities that they believe this is what consumers want to do on a mobile device in particular, when dealing with 1-800-Flowers, they made that change. They saw a 25% increase in time spent on site. We've got a little video of some of these guys talking about their experience with it.
We've always prided ourselves on being innovative.
The old mobile website was not as user-centric as we wanted it to be.
As a collaboration with us and the company, we really focused on what is it that can drive the business metrics.
Once we launched our new design, we saw the results immediately. We saw transactions increase, we saw conversion increase, but it constantly has to be evolving and changing. No matter what technology we migrate to, it's to recreate that personal shopping experience.
I actually got to meet Chris and Amit a couple of months ago. And I want you to know what a nice guy Chris is, in case you're ever thinking about flowers. I told him in the meeting that they had saved my life many times. Not my wife so much, she's really easygoing, but my mother, who holds a grudge. And I told them, I love that I can always get you guys. And in fact, talk about erasing friction. Their very name explains that their heritage was erasing friction. You don't even have to remember the phone numbers, 1-800-Flowers. You can just call, right? That was an easy thing to do, and now it's even easier online. But I dropped Chris a note saying, just bought my mom Mother's Day flowers on my phone, of course. Good experience, glad you guys are there. Just want you to know I'm thinking of you. And he wrote me an email back saying, thanks for the business. And I'm thinking to myself, it was $50. Not a lot of CEOs dropping a note to people that say, thanks for the $50. So one of the big debates, and what marketers talk about a lot, is apps versus mobile. And the app thing is kind of a trap, right? Because it's shiny and it sounds exciting. I'll give you an example. The head of marketing for a major CPG company told me that his CEO said, we need to do something on Twitter. And he said, I'm going to get right on that. Once you can tell me what it is you think Twitter does. Because there are an awful lot of people who just kind of hear the buzz, everybody's talking about apps, let's do that. And you shouldn't run out and do that, because apps are great for certain things and in certain ways. So there's no doubt people are spending more and more and more times on app. In fact, I just got an email from someone the other day that showed that time spent in app is now approaching time spent watching television daily. The truth is, there are a handful of apps that are dominating that, but people are spending a lot of time. Our position is, again, think about friction, think about authenticity for your brand. You want to think about how your app offers, I actually don't like the way this is phrased, entertainment, utility, or both. I think utility includes entertainment. Let me explain why. I think that consumers seek value out of their experience from their mobile device, but in different ways. As a for instance, I don't want my bank to send me a joke a day. It's my money. I don't really need them to be funny. But there are other things they consume, right? Ways to be valuable include make me laugh, maybe, if that's authentic to your brand, but maybe it's teach me to do something, make me more effective, more efficient, show me how to find something, whatever it might be. And yes, it could be save me money, send me a coupon, whatever it is. So that's number one. Are you actually adding any value to the equation? Design your apps for the largest mobile platforms is really just about what platform are you. Is it a tablet app? Well, it used to be that better be an iOS app because that was 90% of the market. It's not just that's true. And finally, promote your app. You can create it, doesn't mean anybody's going to show up. I recently met with a bank that got this wrong, and they got other stuff so right, but they tricked themselves into believing that they were being consistent in what their brand does and adding value. They created a new app that was about shopping for homes, and you could browse homes, you could look for mortgages at their bank, and I'm sure there were other things. I don't remember all that was involved with it, but it was about a banking experience, right? Here's the problem. Zillow does that. And by the way, when you go on Zillow and you look for loans, they come from more places than just that one bank. And that's why this bank has 40,000 downloads and Zillow has 4 million. So they spent a lot of money and time developing something that was redundant and could not win in the marketplace. Did not advance their cause because there was a better solution somewhere else. Worth thinking about. Great app, HP. HP makes money not selling you this, but selling you that. Paper and ink. So they created an app that made it easy to print from your phone. They're creating a whole new way for you to use more of what they're selling you. And by the way, it's not a predatory thing. We wanted to print from our phones. So they're solving everybody's problem. Everybody wins. That's a smart app. Domino's. Order pizza from anywhere. Yes, that's great. But this is a great example of my next, I'll say unauthorized, because nobody else at Google has said this officially, but this is what I do. While right now, apps are really important, advertising an app is important, developing smart apps is important, I believe 3 to 5 years from now, apps will be gone. They will be moot. It is a bubble, because download speeds will become so great, functionality of devices will become so great. You just won't need to make that commitment to say, I need a resident application. Think about what's going on with cloud computing. Google Docs. You don't need a word processor. We've got it. It's up here somewhere. You don't need that happening right here. That's going to happen with mobile too. Interesting this is phrased this way, but the point is, when I brought up that whole idea about CEOs and CMOs getting excited about doing apps, they're doing it at the expense of their mobile website. And if marketers are in a shopping mode, think about it. You're buying a car. Toyota offers you an app. Are you going to get Toyota's app? You don't have a relationship with them yet. That's like planning your honeymoon on your first date. Right? It doesn't make sense. We're not there yet. I want to visit your site, look at your cars. I'm going to visit some other sites and look at their cars. Now, if I buy a Toyota and Toyota says to me, hey, I've got an app, it'll remind you when to change your oil, it'll give you a coupon, it'll show you where the dealership is, it'll tell you when new cars are up, whatever it is, well, that's adding some value, right? About the organization, what we're finding is people need a mobile champion. Because mobile is going to be ubiquitous, it's going to touch everything, you need someone to own the subject and to rally a variety of people in different disciplines to support that cause. You need people from legal, you need marketing people, yes, but you need salespeople. You need everyone in the organization to embrace how this is changing your world. And when you do that, you need that central figure to be asking certain questions. And I'm not going to read you all of these, but I'll highlight a couple of key ones. Who needs to know this stuff? Who needs to know how mobile is working and how effective our mobile presence is? What decisions would be different if you had the data around our mobile performance? This is the kind of stuff that will reshape industries around mobile. And as I said, if you think through the advertising implications, the direct user implications, the sales implications, everybody's got a hand in this. So assign a champion. So how does marketing adapt to this? Well, as much as search has become a part of our lives, search on mobile devices has grown 5x over the last couple of years, to the point that it is now a significant portion of a variety of different search categories. And you know this, you're doing it in your lives. In fact, we are trading more and more behaviors onto our mobile devices. Myself, I don't approve my expenses anymore. Well, I have a desktop. It's something I do while I'm waiting for an elevator. Right? Knock it out. Right? You ever do that exercise about prioritizing, where they give you like tennis balls and ping pong balls and BBs, and you got to fit them in a cylinder.
Big things first.
And the secret is big things first. Put the tennis balls in, and then the ping pong balls fit around them, and you just pour the BBs in, and it all fits. This has become a way to do all those between things, right? It's the new cigarette break, right? You're waiting at a bar. I had a health teacher in high school say, I don't really smoke, but I smoke when I'm at a bar waiting for somebody because I don't want to be not doing anything. Well, what do we do in that situation now? We check our email, on Facebook. We do all kinds of play an app, play a game of some kind. We do all kinds of things. And that's an opportunity for people to connect. The key is understanding, and this was some of what we were talking about before, understanding the context and communicating your message in the right way for the context. So, for instance, on my laptop computer, if I look for buy jeans in San Francisco, I probably want to get to a site where I can buy jeans. If I'm doing the same thing on my device, I may want to find a store. I may want to buy right from my device, but I may want to find a store. In fact, what's not on here is I may want to call someone. Again, think about that friction question. How do I reduce the friction for this consumer? Anticipate the things they might like to do. Sheraton is a good example of somebody who got involved with this. They use something we call hyperlocal. They included a click-to-call button in their advertisement, as well as this hyperlocal signal that tells you exactly how far you are from the location. That's all actionable information. You show up on a map. It makes it easy for the consumer to engage with them. And the net result was a 20x increase in ROI. Not 20%, 20 times. Extraordinary. One of the things we encourage all marketers to do is take a few minutes out and explore like a consumer. I believe one of the hardest things you can do is divorce yourself from what you already know. I met with a credit card company not too long ago and showed them my consumer journey. I saw their ad. I said, oh, that's great. I clicked on it. I went to their site. It was mobile optimized. That's great. I clicked on the button that said credit card, and it said, here's how you can manage your credit card. And I said, but I don't have a credit card. I responded to the ad saying I could get a credit card. And the marketer said, oh, it's under the fold. If you slide, roll up, it's down there. I said, well, I didn't know that. I saw a credit card and I hit the button. And by the way, isn't this the thing you want me to do? So why are you hiding it? The good news for me was they said, don't feel bad. Our executive vice president did the same thing. So what had happened in that scenario? They made assumptions because they built the machine. And they said, well, and then we'll put this here and people will know to do. People don't. This leads to a really big topic for us as it pertains to the mobile experience and marketing and how people understand it and value it. The thing is, a lot of transactions take place on mobile devices which are not well tracked. Think of all the behaviors you do that are not cookied in some way, that are not part of the normal flow. Phone calls. An awful lot of marketers, you make if you see an ad on your mobile device and you call, the credit for that transaction goes to a call center who had nothing to do with this. Or it just goes into the void and they say, somebody just called us, that's great. Directions, app downloads, all these things are kind of leaks in the process of understanding the full value. So if you took an advertiser who was counting nothing but the orders that they got through their mobile device, somebody who clicked, went to their site, and purchased. If they were buying $30 items and they sold, 10,000 of them, that dollar sign is redundant. $600,000 investment only yields $300,000 of sales, and you think you've got an upside down ROI. But if you then applied all the other things that were going on, the calls, the store locator clicks, the app downloads, you might have a very different story. Sorry, I jumped ahead. You might have a very different story. You might have a 30% positive ROI. We've actually created an online calculator that's called Full Value Mobile Calculator that doesn't tell you what that should be. It just gives you the boxes and says, go ahead, plug in what you think, but these are the questions you should ask. It's worth it because we've seen advertisers like Ticket Network optimize their sites, start to track what's going on, and see that sales from mobile grow 184 times in this case, 184%, excuse me. 30% increase in total sales coming from mobile in-app for Fab.com. And T-Mobile, who saw a 13% click-through rate from their mobile site. And for those who are not familiar with marketing parameters, that's extraordinary. Sorry, I forgot this one was even in here. Here's another part of that understanding, the looking in under the layers, right? ModCloth determined that there was different behavior for logged-in users than non-logged-in users. And this is something we're working with advertisers on now, is we're rolling out solutions that show people about their cross-device conversions. Because an awful lot of what's happening on mobile is you do that, I'm waiting for the elevator, and get the information, but you convert later. And all of that information is powerful for marketers. This is the story of how Adidas went through the same thing, I think. Yes, there we go.
Adidas has always felt like mobile is the right thing to do. It's the right place for us to be. It's really the ability to connect the investment to the return. My name is Nicole Mills. I'm the Senior Digital Marketing Manager for e-commerce at Adidas America.
My name is Carrie Smith, and I am the Director of Mobility at Prospect, based here in New York City. When it comes to measuring mobile, if we were to look at a one-to-one response or a one-to-one measurement of what our media budget is driving on our mobile site, we're missing a big part of that picture. As performance marketers, a lot of the time we look at direct response. And what mobile is requiring us to do is redefine direct response.
We're just noticing that a lot of people were finding stores using their device. So the central goals were for Adidas and Prospect to sort of come together and figure out a methodology to measure consumers on mobile devices coming into retail and purchasing products.
When we worked with Adidas to figure out what this equation should be, we used a lot of their internal data. We were able to then apply that 1 in every 5 store locator clicks would result in a visit to a store. Based on that, we knew 13% of in-store visits would result in a purchase, and that average order value in-store was about $71. Because we knew that 1 person out of 5 every store locator clicks would actually go in a store, it indicated a higher level of intent. So we applied a 20% conversion rate with an average order value of $8. After we ran a couple of tests, we were able to identify that every store locator click was then worth $3.20 for the click. Once we applied this equation, we found a 680% incremental benefit ROI.
Before, all we would be able to track was if someone made a conversion in e-commerce. After this case study, we now can apply Adidas that was like, aha, we can play in this space.
I just want to confirm, how are we doing for time?
Fine.
We're great. Okay. So this is another soapbox of mine, which is branding on mobile devices. I think most marketers understand smartphones as tools. Right? We make calls on them, we browse the web, we do our email. But the truth is, it's a powerful branding tool. And we know that cross-screen usage is huge. 75% of all consumers use screens simultaneously, watching TV with a tablet or anything like that. 90% use them sequentially, starting a search in one place, exploring further on another. When you put together multiple screens, you can have a dramatic increase on the impact of a television-only campaign. Now here's the thing, I was on a panel last year with Business Insider, and the host put up 2 slides in sequence. The first was, he said, we asked consumers how they feel about advertising on mobile devices, and they said it's inappropriate. Not it sucks, it's inappropriate. And the second slide was, we've analyzed the performance of different media for advertising, and we found that the smartphone is the single most effective medium in the history of humanity. How do you sync those things up? And my answer was, the answer is in what the consumers said. When you ask consumers how they felt, they said it's inappropriate. That's a powerful word. And it's only a word you use because this is an extremely personal thing. There is no medium that is physically closer to your face than this. There's no medium that you interact with. You could say you turn the pages of a magazine, but it's not a lot of interaction there. You are actually igniting occurrences on this phone, right? You are making things happen. You're part of the experience. This is the only medium you will get halfway to work and drive home to get, if you forgot. Not a lot of people going, oh, my Glamour magazine's at home, I gotta take it. Right? All due respect to Glamour. I selected a non-timing magazine.
We appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Because any Time Inc. magazine, you would drive home. So here's the thing. If it is that powerful, this is inside the circle of trust. So the thing that people are reacting to when they say it's inappropriate, they're reacting to the fact that most advertising on these devices is spammy junk. I think if you could ask that question and strip out and just do big brands, people would answer differently. And if you could further strip it out to brands that were adding value, that were contextual, that were bringing something to the consumer, they would have a very different feel. So that's the opportunity. Is again, back to that discussion we had around apps, is to say, how do I add value to this person? Because they don't want to be yelled at this close to their face. There's no need to do that. I'm already in here. You don't need to say, oh, you did this. You know, you can say, hey, you were looking for pizza. I have a good answer to that. Right? I think this is a not fully exploited opportunity for marketers to brand via this very personal device. I'll say one more thing about the personal quality of it. Think about how you share things on your mobile device. You ever say, hey, check it out? You never do. You do?
Of course I do.
Wow. You're a free thinker.
I hand them my phone. Look at this YouTube video. I hand them the phone.
I think the majority of people, you may feel differently as a group, but the majority of people say, hey, check it out. This is my phone. I actually took a colleague's phone. He's in the business. You would think he wouldn't care. I didn't want to pull mine out of my pocket. I was talking to a client and I grabbed the guy's phone. Very big man. I grabbed his phone and I made it, I started to do this, and behind me I hear, dude, you grabbed my phone. It was like I put my hand on his face. It's a really personal thing, and I applaud you for your liberal sharing. You're a better person than the rest of us, because none of them will do that. All right. So here's another example, and this is from Coca-Cola. I'm so excited to be in a room of people who remember this.
Yes.
At least some of them.
In Project Reread, we reimagined Coca-Cola's classic Hilltop commercial for a modern audience in the digital age. In the spirit of the original ad, it allows users to connect with strangers by sending a Coke around the globe to an unsuspecting recipient, making the world feel just a little bit smaller. The ad can be experienced on mobile phone apps and Google's AdMob network across iOS and Android devices. Made possible through AdMob-rich media ads, coupled with custom-designed vending machines, viewers can truly buy the world of Coke with a few taps on their mobile phones. A viewer can decide where to send a Coke by selecting one of many machines located around the world, from New York City to Cape Town to Buenos Aires. They can then add a custom text message to personalize their Coke delivery. Google Translate converts these messages on the fly, breaking down the language barrier across countries. A dynamic video with Google Maps, Street View, and composite motion graphics shows the Coke's journey from the viewer's current location to the vending machine across the globe. Users can then wait for confirmation of their Coke's delivery or enter an email address to be notified later. Once the Coke is delivered, recipients are not only treated to the generosity of a stranger thousands of miles away, but they can also say thanks by sending a message of their own back to the user. That message is then delivered to the user's inbox, where they can read the note and view a video clip of the recipient's surprised reaction while getting a free Coke. A gallery showcases some of our favorite shareable exchanges between people around the world connecting over a can of Coke. Today's technology allows us to make good on a promise Coca-Cola made over 40 years ago, and lets users buy the world of Coke from the palm of their hand.
So one of the things that marketers love to talk about is surprise and delight, and this was one of those opportunities to surprise and delight consumers. True story. It always pains me a little bit to show this because a year before this was sold through to Coca-Cola, I pitched it to Coca-Cola, and they didn't buy it. This is just about the use of rich media to talk to people. I do want to show you this creative example because it's another good surprise and delight. Again, playing with the capability of the device, making the consumer a part of the experience. It's kind of neat. Right? Okay, enough of that. I'm going to zip through this because we're running short on time, but Chevy actually used, God, they'll keep coming if I keep pushing the button. There we go. Chevy took the opportunity to kind of steal the Super Bowl. They had ads in the Super Bowl, but they created an app and promoted it during the Super Bowl, inviting people to look for it. When you registered with the app, you got a license plate number. And every one of their ads, there'd be a moment you could see a license plate on the car. And if your license plate matched, you won a car. So what it did was it drew everybody's attention to their ads. And then they had all this other activity on the app to help you, learn things to win that drew your attention away from the screen when other people's ads were on. Brilliant idea. And the metrics on it were extraordinary. They got more people watching than attended the Super Bowl. More people involved with this thing. The key is understanding the capabilities of the device and melding that into your relationship with the consumer. Again, I say it's attached back to the authenticity of your brand and what you can do. But think about what the device can do and the context in which people want to do these activities. This is just specific to tablets, so I'll blow through this. And there's another video about Volvo, but I'm going to try to skip that. Here's the big headline. The big headline is, marketers think about winning in mobile, and it's not that. As I said at the very beginning, the key is winning. The winners in the coming decade are, well, I'll put it this way. Nobody's going to win who doesn't figure out this platform. And that's bigger than marketing. It's about serving consumers, right? I'll leave you with this thought because it really struck me. At our developer conference this last week, Larry Page said something I thought was really insightful. He said, everybody wants to talk about the competition between us and other companies. He said, that bores me. I have no interest in that. people need to realize that the most important things are not zero-sum. And if you let that sink in, that's a lot bigger than business. It's about our entire lives. And I think this world, the mobile world, is a great exemplar of that. The opportunities for all of us to be improved, to use the devices to do what Eric Schmidt calls augmented humanity. Devices that make us smarter, better, more capable than we were before. That's a huge thing. So thanks for having me. Do we have time for questions, or have I eaten all of it?
No, we have time. Let's take 5 minutes for questions. And actually, I'd like to start with one question.
Please.
Where does Glass fit in Google's mobile strategy?
Yeah, Glass is exciting. If you think about that whole subject of friction, actually, how many people have had a Google Now experience of any kind? Thank you. Thank you, Vint. I shouldn't have been surprised. This is attached.
He works for IBM.
You do?
That was a joke. Yeah.
This is attached to the Glass company, but I, of course, shouldn't have been surprised because I was fully briefed and I work on these things. But a few weeks back, Michigan got out. They get out early. And my phone rang in my pocket. Or buzzed, you know. And I thought somebody was calling, and I pulled it out, and there was a Google Now card. And the card said, in essence, hey Tim, because you put Allie's flight number or information in your calendar, I checked and it's on time. And since you were, a long time ago, said you were happy to share your location with me, your device, I mapped a route to the airport and I checked the traffic, and if you're going to be there on time, you should leave now. And I kind of went, whoa! Think about what I said before about friction. Larry Page says, we are really good at Google. We've gotten really good at answering your question accurately, giving you a great answer and really quickly. What's better than that? Anticipating what question you should have asked. That's what Google Now is doing. So that's erasing friction. Google Glass, Sergey Brin, who is behind that whole thing, said we become a world that walks around like this. So we're augmented humanity, but we're all getting hunchbacks, right? The real world, the power of this, the idea of augmented humanity is these devices empower us to interact with the real world. Glass erases another layer of that. So where Glass is going is the ability to just heads up, walk around, and interact with the world while connected to the internet, having access to all that information that tells you, hey, the subway is actually out. You should walk or whatever.
Let's take a couple of questions. Yes.
So what are your thoughts on the fact that there are a significant number of, populations in the U.S. where mobile is their primary device, if not their only device? And how do you think that that's changing behavior as far as context for those who have multiple devices versus those who have a single device?
I do another talk that that features a slide that I stole from somebody else that plots complexity of devices against frequency of our proximity to them. And as you plot that, you realize how attractive it is to, and how much consumers have migrated up and to the right. Down here in the corner, I'm seldom with it, and it only does one thing, is my landline phone. Directly above it is my desktop computer. It does lots of things. I'm only with it some of the time. A laptop, way better than that, because I can take it with me. And as you migrate across there, you've got things like SLR cameras and video cameras that were replaced by smaller things that did both those things, that I can have with me more of the time and are more functional. Games, iPods, all of those things. We kept trading in this direction. And then when you get to cellular phones, you've got phones that were good at making calls, BlackBerrys that were good at calls and email, and eventually smartphones that could do all kinds of things. So I think this is not just certain portions of the population, but I think it's going to be everybody, because this is going to be the best solution. I don't think the other things are going to disappear. It's like when television came, radio didn't die. It wasn't a good day for radio, that's for sure. But our radio habits changed. Myself, I listen to radio every day, but it's 10 minutes on the way to the train and on the way back from the train. So radio's still there, but it's functioning differently. Our laptop computers, our desktop computers, they'll all still be part of our lives, just in a different way than they were. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi. One of the questions I had, so you spoke a lot about businesses creating apps for increasing user engagement and adoption and how they it helps expand their brand value. But one of the things that I noticed that you didn't really touch on was the second part of it, which was the payments part, right? So today, I know that 90% of the slides that you showed for small businesses were to buy something, right? And I think that's a huge part of the whole mobile experiences that businesses want to bring to a customer. One of the things, so how important do you think is the whole process of making the payment as simple as possible for the customer? Because the moment you have to enter, I have to take my credit card out and enter it on my screen, there's a huge abandonment of the app during that checkout process.
Absolutely true.
So what are your thoughts on some of the one-click, single checkout payment mechanisms that businesses should move to adopting into their apps? And you can talk about Google Wallet if you want to.
Sure. Thank you for the permission to mention that. Well, I'll first say it's not just apps, because you can do all this on mobile web, right? Part of my friction talk is exactly about that. It's about this idea that as a for instance, when I'm on a keyboard and you ask me my city, state, and zip code, I'm a little annoyed, because I think if you ask me my zip code, you should be able to figure out the rest yourself. It's not that hard, right? Do that to me on the phone, you added 2 extra fields, and I'm forget it. And maybe I'll say to myself, I'll convert later on the keyboard, but maybe I won't. So that's another place you might lose someone. So I think you've landed on something that's crucially important. As it happens, last week at I/O, we announced a new capability that's part of our approach to Wallet, which is basically autofill. So in that same way as my phone said to me, hey Tim, you shared this stuff with me and so I'm going to do some work for you, we'll now essentially be able to say, hey phone, tell the bank that I'm in, and tell them whatever they need to know, including my credit card, and well, bank's a bad example, LLB, give them my credit card, my shipping address, my phone number, whatever they need to know, I'm cool with that. So that's a pretty important solution, because all that thumb typing is a big problem.
So you definitely see a lot of adoption in that space that would be good for businesses to move to a more instant checkout.
Absolutely. I mean, this subject of friction cannot be overstated enough. Consumers are easy to lose, and you've got to make it so painless. We're at the tip of the iceberg. We just announced this. We'll see how businesses adopt it, but I'm sure the consumers will.
In the front row.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the app bubble?
Mm-hmm.
Sort of why you think that is going on?
It's just going to become moot, right? You simply won't, as the devices themselves become more robust and download speeds pick up to the point that you can do anything with the mobile web that you would do in an app. You just won't need to. If you think about cloud computing, part of the benefit of cloud computing is you don't need to download updates to the software. It's all happening up there all the time. You're just accessing. And that, my belief is that over the next 3 to 5 years, that same thing will happen on mobile. So it'll make your device more software-wise lightweight, because all it has to do is access computing power that's remote. And then it kind of dovetails with this same thing about how much information are we willing to share. And while we take privacy extremely seriously and move very cautiously and make sure that everything we do puts the consumer in the driver's seat, that they say, yes, I want to share this. I think over time, we're going to increasingly see consumers say, yeah, this is a good ROI. I'm getting great things out of this, so I'm willing to share this to get the benefit of my phone telling me I should go to the airport.
Okay, one more question. Go ahead, Tim. You choose.
Oh, I gotta choose Vin.
Okay. So your approach seems to be first world centric. Okay, because I teach, my company teaches English, and a large portion of our marketplace, they don't have a reasonable hardline connection to their schools or whatever. Okay, 3 to 5 years is very optimistic for the schools in India. Okay, for being able to do very much. Do you have any projections of when that's going to change?
That's a great question. I don't have a good projection of when we'll see the tipping point globally. The good news is that we are seeing third world markets just leapfrog old technologies, right? So the infrastructure around building a cellular infrastructure is far less painful than rolling out a lot of cable. You know, I'm trying to remember exactly how it went. On NPR, they referred to a few years ago, there was a rumor, and I won't describe it because it's a little bizarre, but it's a very old-fashioned rumor that floated around Somalia, that something horrible would happen to you if you touched an infidel, physically, like a limb would fall off. You know, that very old-fashioned backward rumor sped around Somalia via text. That's how it got purchased in the community. So there's that complete disconnect that people are saying something that is really dumb and old-fashioned thinking via, at the time, cutting-edge technology. I think that's not the rumor part, but I think the technology part is the hope in this, because prices are going to keep coming down and access is going to keep going up. And it'll get to the point where more and more people are going to be able to access this. I mean, right now there are more, outside the United States, globally, there are more mobile phones than toothbrushes. So.
It all comes from outside the U.S.
No, please.
Okay, I think that was wonderful. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you.